The story of the moon does not end with its alleged artificial placement. It truly begins there. Beneath its surface, a complex society with political structures, power struggles, and vast underground cities is said to exist. In this video, we dive into a vision of the moon that casts celestial mechanics, terraforming, and interplanetary governance in an entirely new light. Hello, my name is Frank Halfer, and in the Akasha-Interviews I work as an information medium, documenting and publishing questions and answers about consciousness, humanity, and our place in the universe. With that said, let's turn to the question. Entry A. 231. The Moon. Part 2. The Earth rotates around its axis. This axis does not stand evenly in relation to the rotational axis of the Sun, but tilts toward the Sun's axis over the course of a year. In doing so, it performs a pendulum movement, which, however, is not what we mean when we speak of the Moon rotating when the Earth's axis moves away from the Sun's axis. The Earth's axis also oscillates around its own axis, so it can be said that over the course of a year, the Earth's axis performs a pendulum movement relative to the Sun's axis, and within a much longer period of time, the Earth's axis oscillates around its own axis. When this pendulum movement points away from the Sun, thus either moving toward or away from the Sun, the Moon will change its present face, and the side facing away from the Earth will be oriented toward the Earth. This process has occurred countless times, and the Earth's gravity then accomplished something we call rotational symmetry. It may sound unbelievable to you, but celestial mechanics can explain this process precisely. When two bodies are in interaction with one another, and the mass distribution in both bodies is not balanced, the rotational symmetry of the bodies will lead to the second body having to compensate for the interaction so that the superimposed interaction can continue to exist. The Moon has a different kind of mass distribution that must be balanced when the Earth's axis changes during its pendulum movement toward or away from the Sun. This is normal physics, which you have simply never observed in such an extreme way. We will add the following. Those among you who are knowledgeable need only assume an uneven weight distribution of the Moon, and then the pendulum movement will cause the Moon to show its other side. This process is reversed when the pendulum movement of the Earth's axis again points toward the Sun. Normal physics that would certainly produce great names if applied to the Moon in this way. Now, we would like to continue and reveal some further details about the Moon. The Moon was struck by many rocky bodies that were intended to ensure that abundant high-quality raw materials would be present. The goal has always been to make the Earth life-friendly, so that under defined conditions, life can arise there. All of this effort is worthwhile because everything these beings want is rooted in making a world life-friendly, so that life, as has already happened on countless worlds, has a chance. Life always requires great dedication, and only when all prerequisites have been created can life develop. By this, we mean the following. If spiritual beings did not concern themselves with new life, the natural process would be very lengthy. Therefore, many beings take care of it. The Earth was also such a place chosen for biological life. Many planets in your solar system were already inhabited, but not in the way you are accustomed to on Earth. Rather, much has always taken place in underground outposts. Life like yours on Earth is not rare, but it rarely arises on its own, so assistance has always been given. So it was with your Earth, and many now suspect that life is far older than the millennia you usually consider in your thought patterns. Before the Earth even came into existence, the universe was already richly populated. Your lifespan is very short, for many embodied beings can live several thousand years, although such a lifespan represents something special that we would gladly like to be asked about soon. Beings who live that long experience much and see events from a different temporal perspective. If a process requires several hundred or even 1,000 years, that belongs to their everyday life. And we also say that terraforming a planet nowadays does not take long. In earlier times, however, it was a process that accompanied these beings for an entire lifetime, merely to ultimately enable life on a planet. Why do we tell you all this? Because life is extremely precious, and many beings in the universe do nothing other than repeatedly attempt to make life possible in another place. The Earth has been supported for several billion years, even if it sounds unbelievable to most readers. But nothing on Earth would have developed as it has if that support had not been present from the beginning. The planet would have produced life, but nothing would appear today as it does. Everything lies in the hands of nature, you may think, but even your nature is supported every second by beings you neither know nor can perceive. Nothing would be as you are accustomed to, and that is exactly how it was meant to be. We do not say that humans are controlled, but every human also receives support, and the beings who do such things do so out of a love for life. That is why it is extremely important that the Earth can develop in the way necessary to enable diverse life. This also means that no unwanted influence should affect this development. Therefore, the Moon was reshaped so richly with raw materials that the Earth was not very interesting for most beings. If it is easier to extract raw materials on the Moon, then the beings will do so. We do not say that the Earth was not allowed to be visited, but the incentive to remain on the Moon was much greater than having a base on Earth. The Moon is not hollow, but there are enormous cavities that either formed naturally or were created by beings. Humans imagine building a base to be laborious, but generally it is quite simple. The material that previously filled the cavity is simply transformed into energy, and with energy and certain raw materials, anything that is needed can be produced. A base consumes energy, but this does not have to be obtained by burning raw materials, for energy is available in abundance in the universe. When something is to be produced from energy, certain raw materials are required, and these raw materials exist in abundance on the Moon. It lies in the nature of things that a base beneath the lunar surface becomes larger over time, because the raw materials are mined directly on site and transformed into products. That is why there are bases as large as cities, and many bases are interconnected. The means of transportation are comparable to subways, only that they connect places at speeds that would be unbelievable to you. Many of these bases are strictly monitored, because much has already happened, though we do not mean attacks like those on your Earth. Among the beings on the Moon, there are many who are dissatisfied with how life is lived there. Many races differ in their lifestyles. Some inhabitants require little, and others would like to have more. We must say, strictly speaking, there are classes on the Moon, and some classes have more, and others less. No one gives up the place they have, but many would also like to have more. Much envy can be observed among the beings. There are different races that have settled on the Moon and are divided among themselves, so that disputes often occur. They do not escalate as they do in your films, but there are not few covert maneuvers that cause considerable attention. Many races, however, are peaceful and also share with groups that need it. Yet there are also beings one prefers not to encounter without reason, because the outcome would be unpredictable. The Moon has much to offer, and we will now report about the council that represents all races of the Moon. The council is always composed of the beings who populate the Moon as groups. It is not intended that one group also represents a race. Rather, different beings can organize themselves into a group so that always the representatives of a group are present in the council. If the group is large, due to the number of its members, the representative of the group has many voting rights. A being can be a member of a group, but a being is admitted into a group only if it has not previously been a member of another group. The group can also reject the being if it has previously attracted negative attention. Politics is not the correct designation, yet much would seem familiar to you. Some groups also join together on certain issues, so that the common representative receives more voting rights. Much there, as in the spiritual world, is discussed extensively before a decision is made. Many decisions also have to do with the Earth, and we believe that if spacecraft of yours were sighted on the lunar surface, this was previously decided by the Council. Many beings would like to have contact with the Earth, but as long as humanity believes it is alone in the universe, there will be no official contact. The Council also decides on new places on the Moon that may be assigned to a group. If a group requires a new location because the raw materials there are richer, or because the group would like to expand, it submits an application to the Council with a justification as to why it needs a new location. This application is examined very carefully, and only if the applicant can prove the reason for its undertaking will a vote even be taken. These are the moments when many groups come together to reject such an application, because, for example, the demanding group is already very present on the Moon, or because another group would like to use the location. It is like on Earth. It takes a very long time before a hotly contested location on the Moon is assigned. Earth's humans are not represented as a group on the Moon, and you could not lay claim to ownership of the Moon. If humanity wanted to establish a base on the Moon, it would not succeed because human technology is still in its infancy. If humanity wished to pursue larger goals on the Moon, it would have to join a group. The voting rights of humanity would also have no significance in decisions. Only groups that are permanently present constitute a group at all. If members of a group are not present for a longer period, the votes of those members are no longer counted. The number of members of a group is not limited, but not everyone can become a resident of the Moon. Residents of the Moon are registered, and many have lived there for many years. If a human could decide to live permanently on the Moon, they would need a place to live. There would be the possibility of being accommodated by a group. As on Earth, the human would commit to something in return. Many beings work within groups, and in return they are provided for, and can then become a member of the group. Now you are surely thinking of the work you do on Earth, but it is not like that. Beings do not come to the Moon without reason. Most beings want to accomplish something. There are many ways in which a being can realize itself, and many beings conduct research in various fields so that many insights are gained on the Moon. Many beings also support humans in progressing. Some are in telepathic contact with humans, and sometimes they will even stand face to face. But this rarely occurs because such contacts must also be applied for. The Moon population must adhere to certain rules. There are rules for the Moon, for the Earth, and for other planets in the solar system. These rules can lead to groups having to leave the Moon because individual members were responsible for a violation of rules. If a group was banished, the location is reassigned. These moments cause a great stir among the Moon population, but it does not occur very often. In the next part, we will speak about life inside the Moon, and what kind of technology is used there. This entry, along with many others, is available on my website. The content is published in German, but modern browsers make translation straightforward. You'll find a direct link to this blog entry and further helpful information in the video description.